The spring morning sunlight streamed down onto the small farm nestled at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. Mr. Martin's farm wasn't large, but it had enough space with sparse woods surrounding it, creating an ideal environment for Scout, a 7-year-old black Labrador, to explore to his heart's content. Mr. Martin was a retired wildlife photographer who had worked for National Geographic for 3 decades. He had spent most of his career in Africa and South America photographing big cats in their natural environments. 5 years ago, after his wife passed away, he decided to retire and move to the farm he inherited from his parents in Virginia, bringing along Scout, the dog who had been his companion during the final years of his career. This week, Mr. Martin had gone to Washington, D.C. to attend a wildlife conservation conference. Scout remained under the care of the elderly gardener, Mr. Wilson, and, as usual, was free to explore the area around the farm as long as he appeared at feeding time. A major storm had just swept through the area a few days ago, causing significant damage to the forest behind the farm. This morning, following his routine, Scout ran along the trail leading from the farm into the woods. His nose constantly sniffed the ground, picking up hundreds of new scents that the storm had brought: broken trees, damp earth, and small creatures that had moved to new shelters. Near a heavily damaged section of forest, Scout suddenly stopped. His nostrils flared, catching a strange scent, strong, wild, and completely foreign to this area. It was the scent of a large predator. The fur on Scout's back stood up, an instinctive reaction to a potential threat. What Scout couldn't know was that the previous week, a serious incident had occurred at the private zoo Exotic Treasures about 15 mi away. The storm had damaged part of the fence, allowing several animals to escape, including a 3-year-old female African leopard named Zara. While most of the animals had been found, Zara was still in hiding. The zoo had kept this information confidential to avoid panic, only notifying authorities and residents within a 10-mile radius. Curiosity overcoming fear, Scout moved forward carefully and slowly. He approached a clearing where several large trees had fallen. On a horizontal tree trunk lay a creature that instinct told Scout to avoid: an adult leopard. Her golden coat with characteristic black spots stood out among the green foliage. Zara, the leopard, had spent 4 days hiding and was exhausted. Born in captivity and regularly fed, her hunting skills were underdeveloped. A wound on her hind leg, the result of escaping through the damaged fence, further limited her hunting ability. Hungry and tired, Zara had been unable to move far in the past 24 hours. Scout stopped about 3 m from Zara. A wild dog in nature would never approach such a large cat, but Scout had lived his entire life among humans with little exposure to natural predators and lacking the strong, innate fear. Additionally, Zara wasn't displaying typical attack posture. No growling, no predatory stance, just exhaustion and tired eyes. Gray clouds began gathering in the sky, signaling approaching rain. Scout looked up at the sky, then back at Zara. The combination of curiosity, inexperience with big cats, and the social nature of his breed caused Scout to continue moving closer rather than fleeing. Scout approached Zara cautiously, but without showing clear fear. His tail wasn't tucked down as it would be when frightened, but wagged slightly, a natural dog response when approaching a new creature. Zara observed her body tensed in a defensive posture, but too weak to react strongly. After a moment of mutual assessment, Scout boldly stepped next to Zara. In an extraordinary act, he placed his right paw on Zara's face, a typical canine behavior to establish position within a pack. In other circumstances, this action might have led to a fierce response from a leopard. But Zara, exhausted and raised among humans from a young age, simply tilted her head and accepted the contact. This interaction marked a special moment. Not friendship as humans understand it, but mutual acceptance between two creatures who weren't natural enemies under special circumstances. Zara, after years of living in a zoo, had become accustomed to the presence of other species and no longer reacted entirely according to wild instincts. Scout, raised among humans, lacked the innate fear that his wild ancestors would have had. After some contact, Scout began moving toward the farm. He looked back at Zara several times, behavior that could be interpreted as continued curiosity or a signal for Zara to follow. Perhaps it was the combination of hunger, fatigue, and familiarity with humans that caused Zara to stand up and begin following Scout, a decision based on basic survival needs rather than any complex emotions. The first raindrops began falling as both approached the farm. Scout led the way to an old barn at the back, a wooden structure that hadn't been used much since Mr. Martin moved in, filled with old wooden crates and gardening tools. A broken window provided entry for smaller creatures, but the main door had been locked for a long time. With agility gained from years of climbing, Scout squeezed through the broken window and then used his nose to push a loose board at the bottom of the main door, creating a gap large enough for Zara to crawl through. This wasn't the first time Scout had done this. He had often found ways into the barn to escape bad weather or hunt mice. Inside the barn, some old blankets had been stacked on a wooden shelf, probably used to protect equipment. Scout was accustomed to pulling them down to create a more comfortable resting place than the hard wooden floor. Now, as Zara crawled in, Scout pulled one down out of habit. The leopard, guided by instinct to seek dry and secluded shelter, curled up on the blanket while the rain began falling heavily outside. A few hours later, when the rain had stopped, Mr. Wilson came to feed Scout as usual. When he didn't find Scout on the porch, he began calling his name. Scout, hearing the familiar call associated with food, responded to his conditioned reflex and ran outside, leaving Zara in the barn. Mr. Wilson fed Scout and checked the house as usual, completely unaware of the special guest in the old barn. After he left, Scout returned to the barn with some leftover food, not from human-like conscious sharing, but a hoarding behavior common in many animal species, including dogs. Zara, driven by hunger, ate the food Scout left behind, although it wasn't the natural diet of leopards. In the following days, a behavioral pattern began to form. Scout, still responding to Mr. Wilson's daily feeding schedule, began spending more time in the barn with Zara, not because of friendship, as humans understand it, but due to natural curiosity and the social instincts of dogs. For Zara, the barn provided safe shelter, and Scout's presence wasn't threatening and was even beneficial when he brought food. Zara's leg wound gradually healed, and with regular food, though insufficient compared to her needs, her strength began returning. Both creatures coexisted in a strange communal state, not friendship as humans understand it, but an atypical symbiotic relationship created by special circumstances. On the morning of the 5th day since Zara arrived at the farm, Mr. Wilson noticed something unusual: strange footprints in the soft earth near the barn, and Scout's food disappearing faster than usual. With experience living in rural areas, he began suspecting a wild animal had found its way onto the farm, possibly a fox or raccoon. He decided to check the barn, something he didn't do regularly. Scout, sensitive to changes in Mr. Wilson's daily routine, detected his intention and ran ahead to the barn. This reaction could be explained by territorial protection instincts or resorting, not necessarily conscious warning of Zara in the way humans understand. When Mr. Wilson opened the barn door, both Scout and Zara were no longer there. Scout might have startled Zara with his agitated behavior, or the sound from unlocking had made the recovering leopard alert and retreat. However, clear signs showed a large creature had been there: blankets on the floor, scratch marks on wooden crates, and especially clear paw prints of a large cat on the damp ground. Mr. Wilson, knowledgeable about local wildlife, immediately recognized these weren't prints from any native species. He immediately called Mr. Martin, who was on his way back from Washington, D.C. Mr. Martin returned to the farm a day earlier than expected. As his car pulled into the driveway, Scout appeared from the edge of the woods. Mr. Wilson was waiting on the porch, his worried expression clearly visible. He handed Mr. Martin his phone with photos of the strange footprints in the barn while explaining Scout's unusual behavior recently, disappearing for hours and eating more than usual. Mr. Martin studied the photos, immediately recognizing these as leopard prints. Just then, his phone received a notification from local wildlife management about an escaped leopard from Exotic Treasure Zoo during last week's storm. All the pieces began falling into place. After convincing Mr. Wilson to go home for safety reasons, Mr. Martin began calling Scout. The dog appeared from the edge of the woods, but not alone. About 5 m behind him, an adult African leopard was watching from the shadows of pine trees. Mr. Martin stood motionless, drawing upon all the knowledge and experience accumulated during his long career. He gently called Scout, and after a moment of hesitation looking between Mr. Martin and the leopard, the dog finally approached his master. While petting Scout, Mr. Martin observed the leopard. Professional experience told him this was an escaped captive animal, not a completely wild predator. The way she stood, how she observed humans without natural fear, and especially the non-hostile relationship with Scout. The afternoon sunlight created long streaks of light across the farm grass, while the leopard remained still, watching. The tension in the air gradually eased as Mr. Martin sat down, reducing any potentially threatening posture. Scout sat beside him, occasionally glancing towards Zara as if waiting for something. A gentle breeze blew through, carrying the scent of damp earth and freshly cut grass. After nearly 20 minutes of silence, Zara began moving, not retreating into the woods, but slowly approaching step by step, her yellow eyes never leaving the human before her. This behavior clearly showed this was a leopard accustomed to human presence, but still maintaining wild vigilance instincts. Mr. Martin took out his camera and began photographing, capturing this rare moment. The gentle shudder sounds didn't startle Zara, another sign of an animal long lived in human environments. When Zara reached about 10 meters away, she stopped and sat in an observing posture. Scout looked at Mr. Martin, then at Zara as if trying to assess the situation. The afternoon light gradually faded, giving way to darkness. Mr. Martin knew not to force contact too soon. He stood up carefully and slowly, then returned to the house with Scout. From the living room window, he continued observing as Zara remained in her original position, clearly considering this new situation. That night, Mr. Martin researched Exotic Treasure Zoo thoroughly online. The online reviews and inspection reports he found confirmed what he had suspected. This was a facility with below-average animal care standards, with numerous violations regarding living space and nutrition for animals. Zara, according to the information he found, was an African leopard born in captivity at a facility in Texas, confiscated during a law enforcement raid 3 years ago, and subsequently transferred to Exotic Treasures. The next morning, as dawn was just breaking, Mr. Martin saw Zara lying under an oak tree near the barn. Scout, already awake and standing by the door, made small whining sounds, wanting to go outside. Mr. Martin opened the door, watching as Scout headed straight to Zara. Their meeting unfolded naturally, no signs of tension or fear, just the comfort of two creatures familiar with each other. In an amazing moment, Scout approached Zara's side and gently placed his right paw on the leopard's face. Behavior Mr. Martin had seen in dogs establishing relationships with their kind. What was surprising was that Zara accepted this gesture calmly, even seeming comfortable. Mr. Martin quickly grabbed his camera and captured this moment, a photo that would later become iconic for his research on interspecies relationships. In the following days, Mr. Martin spent time carefully observing the relationship between Scout and Zara from a distance using photography and observation skills honed over many years. He captured many amazing images, including moments of them drinking water together from a small puddle, Scout chasing a rabbit, then stopping when near Zara as if yielding prey to the leopard, and many instances of Scout placing his paw on Zara's face. A particularly interesting behavior from an animal behavior research perspective. Mr. Martin also began placing fresh meat near the barn, not the dog food Scout had previously shared, but beef and chicken from the local butcher shop, more suitable for a leopard's natural diet. Zara quickly adapted to this new feeding schedule, appearing at the same time each day, usually accompanied by Scout. Zara's adaptation to the new environment was remarkable. The leopard seemed to understand the farm's boundaries, never venturing too far into the nearby residential area. The relationship with Scout seemed to provide Zara with a form of education about the human world, how to interpret sounds, smells, and human presence through Scout's reactions. Instead of immediately reporting to authorities, Mr. Martin contacted Diana Miller, a former colleague at the World Wildlife Conservation Fund and a leading expert on big cats. He sent photos and detailed descriptions of the current situation, seeking professional advice. The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, with Mr. Martin sharing every detail about Zara's behavior, her relationship with Scout, and his scientific observations. Diana listened intently, occasionally asking pointed questions about specific behaviors and details about Zara's history that Mr. Martin had uncovered. Diana wasn't too surprised about this atypical relationship, explaining that under special conditions, especially with captive or zoo animals, non-hostile interspecies relationships had been documented before. She shared about a similar case in Kenya where an orphaned leopard had developed a relationship with a ranger's hunting dog, and another case in Brazil with a jaguar and a sheepdog. The real issue, according to Diana, was finding a suitable place for Zara, not returning her to the private zoo with poor conditions, but also not allowing the leopard to live freely in Virginia where it wasn't her natural environment and could pose danger to local residents. Diana proposed a solution, a new sanctuary in South Africa where they were collaborating, which had a readaptation program for big cats born in captivity. This program combined modern science with indigenous knowledge from sand hunters, creating conditions for leopards like Zara to relearn natural skills in a safe environment. While waiting for Diana to make arrangements, Mr. Martin began renovating the barn. He installed better ventilation systems, created an elevated wooden resting space similar to tree branches that leopards typically prefer in nature and ensured the structure was strong enough to withstand the coming winter weather if needed. He also installed automatic cameras to record Zara's behavior when he wasn't present. The footage obtained in the following weeks provided deep insights into the relationship between Scout and Zara. Particularly interesting was how they played together. Not fierce predatory games, but a gentler form of interaction with Scout, often initiating by bowing his head down, tail wagging high, a common play invitation posture in dogs. Zara responded by gently pawing at Scout with retracted claws, behavior commonly seen among young leopards playing with each other. One morning, Mr. Martin woke to strange sounds from the porch. Through the window, he saw an amazing sight: Scout and Zara lying close together on the porch. Scout with his paw resting on Zara's face, both watching the sunrise. This was the first time Zara had approached the house so closely, a sign of increasing comfort with the new environment. Mr. Martin quickly grabbed his camera, taking a series of photos through the window to avoid disturbing them. One of these photos, with perfect dawn light illuminating Zara's golden coat and highlighting Scout's sleek black fur, would later become the cover of his book and be widely used in animal behavior studies. 2 weeks later, Diana called back with good news. The Great Karoo Sanctuary agreed to accept Zara into their readaptation program. They were particularly interested in her relationship with Scout and saw this as a valuable research opportunity. The only remaining issue was transporting a leopard across continents, a significant logistical and legal challenge. Mr. Martin, with his experience and connections in the field, volunteered to handle the entire process. He began gathering necessary permits, contacting wildlife authorities, and arranging special transportation. This process took longer than expected, with quarantine requirements, health checks, and wildlife import-export permits. During the waiting period, the relationship between Mr. Martin and Zara also gradually developed. Initially, the leopard always kept a safe distance from him, only appearing when Scout was present. But gradually, with patience and respect for Zara's space, Mr. Martin began to be accepted. A turning point occurred when Zara allowed him to approach while she was eating, a sign of considerable trust for a predator species that typically protects its food fiercely. One afternoon, while sitting on the porch with Scout beside him, Mr. Martin was surprised when Zara approached and laid down just a few meters away. For the next hour, 3 beings, human, dog, and leopard, shared space in strange peace, each accepting the presence of the others without threat or fear. This was the moment Mr. Martin realized the bond between Scout and Zara was too special to be broken. Watching Scout and Zara lying together on the porch under the afternoon sun, Mr. Martin realized these two creatures had developed a bond that separation might not only harm their mental state but also reduce Zara's chances of success in the readaptation process. A bold idea began forming in his mind. He called Diana back, proposing a plan that initially sounded crazy, bringing Scout to South Africa along with Zara. He argued that Scout's presence could be a crucial factor in Zara's readaptation process, providing mental stability and security while she relearned natural skills. Initially, Diana was skeptical, but after reviewing the videos and photos Mr. Martin had recorded, she began to see the logic in this proposal. She promised to present the idea to the sanctuary management. A week later, Diana called back with surprising news. The management not only agreed to the plan of bringing Scout to South Africa, but also invited Mr. Martin to participate as an advisor to the project. They saw this unique situation as an invaluable research opportunity about animal behavior and new readaptation methods. This offer came at just the right time of transition in Mr. Martin's life. At 62, he had retired from regular photography work, but was still passionate about wildlife research and conservation. The farm in Virginia, while beautiful and peaceful, sometimes brought feelings of loneliness after his wife's death. The opportunity to return to Africa, where he had spent many years of his career, and continue contributing to conservation was both appealing and meaningful. After many nights of consideration, he decided to accept the offer. Over the next 2 months, he arranged everything, renting the farm to a young couple interested in sustainable agriculture, completing legal procedures for Zara, and preparing Scout and himself for their new life in South Africa. A month later, Mr. Martin, Scout, and Zara set foot in South Africa. The Great Karoo Sanctuary, spanning 50 0-acres of semi-desert land, welcomed them with magnificent landscapes of golden grasslands stretching to the horizon, distant mountain ranges, and deep blue skies. For Zara, this was the first time she had seen an environment similar to her ancestors' natural homeland. Mr. Martin didn't just bring Zara to a new safe place. He had combined this journey with a career turning point. With his experience and reputation, He accepted a senior advisor position at the sanctuary, responsible for education and research programs on interspecies, relationships, and new readaptation methods for wildlife born in captivity. Zara was placed in a large area surrounded by electric fencing where she could relearn hunting skills while still being monitored and supported. This area was designed to simulate the natural environment of African leopards with characteristic acacia trees, large rocks for climbing and observation, and even some small prey species introduced for Zara to practice hunting skills. Scout, with his special instincts and intelligence, was allowed to visit Zara regularly under Mr. Martin's supervision. The dog quickly adapted to the new environment, delighting in the different scents and sounds of Africa. Scout's presence not only benefited Zara, but also helped Mr. Martin in his work. He often detected the presence of wildlife before humans noticed, helping him observe and record more natural behaviors. Their new home was a small cabin at the edge of the sanctuary with a porch overlooking vast grasslands. Each morning, Mr. Martin woke to the sounds of African birds,